Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar, Resources for Caregivers, Older Adults and Adults with Disabilities. My name is Juliana Valencia and I am a caregiver specialist with Fairfax Area Agency on Aging. You should have received an email this morning with the speaker's slides, so you'll have them for future reference. It's not necessary for you to have the slides open during today's presentation. You can ask a question at the end of the presentation by typing it into the question box on your panel. Today's presentation is being recorded, and a recording will be sent to all registrants by early next week. There will be a brief survey as you signed out, so please help us by giving us your feedback. Today's presentation is actually very exciting, and I am very excited to have Karen Hannigan with us. Karen is currently the supervisor of our intake line for the Fairfax County's ADCR program, which stands for Aging, Disability, and Caregiver Resources. Really a fancy term for our front door intake services. Karen has a master's degree in geriatric social work from Washington University in St. Louis and many years of working in the field as an adult protective services social worker, as well as a private geriatric care manager, and prior to her current desk job as a supervisor within our call center. So Karen, she's not online right now. We are waiting for her. She is I think she had some problems with traffic. So if you don't mind, we'll just wait for a few minutes. And in the meantime, if you have any questions, please feel free to send them to our Q&A box, and I'll be happy to address any questions you may have. Also, if you need our intake line number, let me share that with you. The 703-324-7948 is our ADCR number if you have any questions about our programs, about our services, not just for older adults or family caregivers, but also for adults with disabilities. This is a must-answer line from Monday through Friday from 8 to 4:30. This line is staffed by social workers who are very knowledgeable, not just on all of the programs that our department offers, but also about community services. They will listen to you and they will make appropriate referrals based on your situation.
Hi, Juliana.
Hi, Karen. How are you?
I'm good. Sorry to everybody. A little bit of a traffic issue, but I'm here.
I am so excited to have you.
Did you just start?
I did.
Good.
I already presented you, so the stage is all yours.
Very, very good. And you're going to put up that one slide, right, for me? So I can do use it.
Yeah.
So I heard Juliana, everybody, talking to you about what my team does. And the great thing, like she said, is that you dial this one number. It used to be, I think, maybe 15 years ago, you had different numbers you dialed depending upon where you were in the county. And they decided to centralize that early on and have everyone come to one-stop shop. And the phone is a must-answer line that has we're so lucky that we have short wait times, if any. Lunchtime can be tough and late in the afternoon, but we're 8 to 4:30. And the great thing is you don't need to be educated about anything except your own story, and you call with it, and you don't get an administrative person, you get a social worker, a master's level social worker, because Fairfax has recognized that for older adults and those with disabilities who need long-term care, that the world of all of that care is so huge. We got the for-profits, the not-for-profits, the government, and it's so complex. And so we need some good folks at the front line who can listen to your story and try to tell you maybe what you might be qualifying for or need now, and then what might happen should your money run out, because a lot of people, of course, are concerned about that, and they have fears, and so, okay, we can allay those. And then as caregivers, we always, usually it's a caregiver, right? Not the client that calls. Sometimes it's a client, but a lot of times, I would say the majority of the time is someone who's really concerned about an older adult. And at the end of that call, after we talk so much about the older adult and what's going on with him or her in the caller's life, if we have time, which sometimes we don't, but a lot of times we do, we'll say, and how are you doing? And a lot of times the caregivers will say, oh, nobody's been asking that question, because that's important too. And usually the caregivers don't care as much about, how they're doing as they do about their loved one, which makes a lot of sense. But so I supervise that team, and I just had Juliana put on the screen, I think you can see it, right? The what is my only slide for today, and that is our monthly statistics that I turn into the Long-Term Care Coordinating Council and to my bosses about what the social work team that I supervise does every month. And I can't see the bottom, I forgot. We usually do about 1,200, 1,300, 1,400 interactions every month. We do have a way to reach us online. At 3 in the morning, someone could do a little a web form and send it to us, and we'll try to call them back. That's not the best way to do it, quite honestly, but that can happen. The majority is by that phone number that Juliana said, and I'm going to say again, 324-7948. So that is, again, a must answer. We've got 7 social workers. We're all waiting for your call, and we're waiting to hear your story and then talk to you about what services might be available. And you've probably heard about different things and have questions. I heard a neighbor has this. I heard a friend has that. What's going on? And we'll tell you, okay, this is what the deal is. So these are our statistics that I turn in every month, and sometimes the top ones flip around, but they're usually the same 5 top services. What I'm going to try to do is go as quickly as I can through these and then leave time for questions. And Juliana's going to let me know if I'm going too long. But so I want to give you a little taste of every single one of these, and then have you all say, hey, wait a minute, Karen, can you tell me a little bit more about this one? Or what are the financial requirements of that one? Or just, I guess the most important thing about this talk is for you to know that these types of things exist. Hopefully nobody in your family or yourselves need it, but we're all going to need help as we age at some point. And so to have it in the back of your mind to tell everyone around you, hey, this place exists, because people do some advanced planning. We look at maybe our 401ks and different things like that, but oftentimes human beings also wait till something happens. That's normal, it's fine. But for you to have it in the back of your brain that this exists and that this number is here for when you need it is really important to me, and for you to spread the word if you can, that that this is a pretty good shop to call. You're not going to be having to push a bunch of buttons, and you are not going to have to be little bit of buttons. We have one that we just had to put on because of COVID, but you're going to get to someone real very quickly. So I want you to know and I feel very fortunate because there are other phone lines to this county that aren't staffed as well as we are, and that's not the case, and I'm aware of that, but we are in good shape. So the first one I got last month was a pretty busy month for adult protective services. Just like what it sounds, if you think that anyone above the age of 60 or who's 18 to 59 and unable to advocate effectively physically or mentally for themselves needs help, they're being abused, neglected, financially exploited, is incredibly different from child protective services, almost has nothing to do with child protective. It's more along the lines of domestic violence situations or self-neglect. Our number 1 report is self-neglect. 55%. Number 2 is starting to be financial. Neither of those is true for kids, right? They can't self-neglect, and they don't usually have any financial exploitation. So very, very different, and we respect people's rights, and our whole goal is keep people at home. We are not a fan of nursing homes. We are not a fan of assisted livings. Apologies to anybody who might be on this training who works for them. I mean, they are needed, but we're going to try to keep people at home. And that's the services we're going to do. And we're social workers, not police. So often very complicated family dynamics or self-neglect, and an older adult struggling to stay home no matter what, and things are going bad and they're not really recognizing it. And you know what? I'm going to be exactly the same way. So we fight and say, all right, let's let you live the way you want. Would you take just Meals on Wheels? Just a little something, get you a little safer. That leads me to the second one. Last month, Meals on Wheels nutrition program was number 2. They have gone crazy during COVID. I mean, people do not want to go shopping. It's not safe. People we normally would have said no to, we're saying yes to. Fairfax is being very wide and open with who we're serving, which is fantastic. That team is being crushed by referrals, but that's okay. And we have a great vendor and really do fresh, nutritious food. They flash freeze it, do 1 time a week delivery. And that program is donation only. You can make any money you want. And we will give you a suggested donation, which you can comply with or not. So that is a all access program. APS is also an all access program, no matter what your money status is or anything else. Screenings, ALF screenings or CCC plus, that's a big one for us. So I'm going to give it to you very quickly. If you have money saved away for long-term care, say you're going to hire your own home health aide, and you get down, and you're a single person, and you get down to $2,000 in your bank, and you still want a home health aide to come, and you've got a disability that's pretty significant, nursing home level of care, the state will, and Medicaid, state federal program, will pay for an aide to go out to the home. 30 hours a week is a typical amount to keep someone at home. So it's not 24/7, but it's our group that helps. It's a very complicated Medicaid program, and our group helps put the puzzle pieces together. And we also send forward the referrals for the social workers who go out into the field, because my team stays put in their cubicle, in their call center. And in fact, you get more than one mind, because I have a phone call, someone needs a ramp, I'm thinking home repair for that. Anybody else have any ideas? And so you get put on hold, and multiple people think about what's going on and give you suggestions. So we stay put, but there are social workers that go out into the field, those adult protective service investigators and the adult services who are doing these things called screenings to get people hooked up with home care. And it's us that writes up the initial referral. So we're the beginning of all of that. And then we send it forward to the supervisors, and the supervisors assign it to different social workers who go out in the field. Right now, for those screenings, it's being done all through, I think it's called DoxyMe is the program, but they're all doing it on the screens rather than going through a door. APS is still going out to see what's going on, because there's nothing like seeing what's happening out there in the field. So anyway, my team is the one that starts it and sends it, but we don't go out in the field. And that's that next one, adult services. So adult protective services, number 1, the client does not call, someone's calling about them and they have no idea we're showing up. The 4th one, adult services referral set, means we always get the client's consent. So you might have a neighbor and you're like, oh my God, Karen, this is good stuff. That's a taxpayer too. She needs home care. She needs Meals on Wheels. Somebody needs to give her a bath. I've been smelling her. I've been taking and driving her all around. Someone else needs to help her out with that. And that's great. But if you call me and tell me that you want Mrs. Smith to have services, and you're probably absolutely correct that she could use them, unless she consents to that, which means people can't force you to take anything either, right? So we get the older adult on the phone, even if they have dementia, and all we have to do in a conference call is say, is it okay for us to take your personal information that your daughter wants to give us in order to get some help in the home? And we really, really try to get them to say yes. We're a very open call center versus let's screen everybody out. We try to screen in. And we will say, even to an older adult with dementia, we'll say, put them on the phone anyway. It's a respectful thing, and it's consent. It's very important in social work. And the client will often having nice conversations with us, and then the caregiver's like, oh, I'm surprised that she said all that, and every now and then someone says, I don't want anybody in my home. And we say to the daughter, sounds like your family has to have more conversation. We're always here for the future. So I just wanted to let you know, the first one kind of happens without folks' consent, but there has to be risk. I got to hear that something's bad's going on. And the fourth one is they're saying, yeah, let's try things. And I send that forward for people who are more impoverished. And what do I mean by that? I mean, I'm going to tell you the number. Their income, a single person has $3,000 a month or less income, and a couple has $4,000 or less income. I'm going to send them to that adult services. And don't worry, there's some other group that'll help people with more than that, but that's usually who the adult services folks take care of. Adcr consultation. That's exactly what I'm talking to you now, where you come and you don't know what you need, and what we do with you is have a big, robust conversation about different things, but we don't land on any service yet. We just tell you about things. But you can call us, by the way, anonymously. It's fine. If you don't want to give information, you just want to run by a scenario, that's good. No problem. So consultation means you don't know which of these services you need, which you don't have to, but we consult with you. And so that's pretty high up there. That's usually one of our top 5. And I'm glad that means that our number's out there and people are calling, not just to say, I want a screening or I want meals, but just to call us to talk about their situation, which I really invite and hope we continue. I want to grow that, continue that. Benefits, that is Medicaid and food stamps and all of that stuff. And it is unfortunate, but that phone line at Department of Family Services has massive wait times because there's so many in need right now, and always. It's worse now. And people will get tired of that whole time. They'll be an older adult and they'll call us. We try to help, but the truth is I have to push them back to the benefits folks, because we don't do that. We don't give out food stamps or Medicaid, but we know a lot about those programs if people ask, hey, how does this work? Housing, that's a rough one, but there is a lot of housing here in Fairfax, and there's a lot actually in the pipeline. That's pretty amazing. I was just looking at a video of what's going to be built, HUD housing that is lower income, protected somewhat from the massive expense that is out there for trying to live here and pay for housing for older adults. There are some places. They have waiting lists. My team has visited every single one of them. We've created a list. Things like, do they take dogs? How long is their waiting list? How do I get on the waiting list? Is it even open? How much money will it cost? Need to update that. But we know pretty much what's out there and how HUD works, how HUD worked in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the aughts. We kind of understand that. I want my team to understand it so they can communicate it to people very in plain language about how that works. APS info only, that's various things. Like, they don't want to make a report, but they want to talk it through. Sometimes it's a kid writing a book report, anything there. And adult services info only. Those top ones are when we really took reports or really sent people out, those higher numbers. These are when we just talked it through. Transportation, not my favorite one. My team knows more about it. I always feel like there's so much transportation out there for older adults, and then never exactly what someone needs. It's interesting because you think about transportation in terms of, can they get to a bus stop, or is it hand to hand, or is it door to door? Is it door through door and someone sits with them? That's an interesting one. And the first thing we'll ask is, where do you live? That's very much dependent on where you live. So we'll try to process that through. Coordinated services planning. Don't know if you guys have ever heard of these guys, but they're the 222-0880. That's the phone number. And they do, oh my God, I can't pay my rent. I can't pay my electricity. People are in crisis. It's a one-time crisis that the group can see they can get out of, but they had a bad time. Like, we don't want to throw bad money, good money after bad, so they have to have a plan to get themselves out. And it has to be basic needs. So food, shelter, clothing, utilities. And so we do not do that. A big group of social workers do that by the phone, and they work with the not-for-profits who are amazing, and get money for people and become screeners. Tough job, just hired someone from that unit, so it's great. I'm learning all of the stuff that they do, and they're all on the phones. Home Care Registry, love the Home Care Registry. Home Care Registry is only here in Fairfax, and all of our Northern Virginia partners ask us for it because we're the ones that do it. We have one staff person, and what are we doing? We're taking home health aides who work for agencies or the nursing homes or assisted livings, but mostly home health agencies, and they see that the agency is charging the older adult $30 an hour, but they're only getting paid whatever they pay them, 11, 12, maybe it's more, but they get paid half. And so they're like, wait a minute, what if I get directly to the older adult? They can pay less and I can make more and we can have a relationship. And so that is a person on staff, not in my staff, but she has everybody come in. She used to, I don't know with COVID now what's happening, probably on Zoom or something. She used to have them come into the building at a prescribed day and time. If they didn't show up, they didn't get on the list because boom, they're not reliable. Then they get a background check done on them. It is just for Fairfax County. If it's clean, then she puts them and she's okay with the person. Sometimes we've had to screen out some folks that have mental illness and don't think like they can do the job, but she screens them, puts them on, says what areas of the county they will work in, what languages they speak, are they good with transferring, bathing, cleaning, everything that would happen in the home to keep someone at home. And the list is created and then given to whoever calls. Anybody can call and get that registry, and I can even tell you how to get it online. I always have to do it myself, but it's online. And hire your own person to do home health care at probably, almost half the price that you would for an agency. Home-based care info only. All right. The county has, I don't know how much we have. I know it's at least $1 million, but we have money that is some state seed money, federal, state, and much more county money for home-based care. We have a contract. Currently, it's with a company called the Medical Team. And they go in and they do what we call task-based. That's so that we can stretch the dollars. So whereas that upper one where Medicaid pays that screening I was talking about, and I said 30 hours a week, 40 hours a week, and it also pays for nursing homes if people have to go. But this is much more limited. This is you go in and you get a task done. Okay, I need 3 loads of laundry. We're gonna do a purchase order for that for you. I need a bath twice a week. We need, to take out the trash. It's very, very task-based. Nobody's sitting around. Nobody's being a companion. Nobody's just walking someone around. It is in and out and free. Again, if you have 3,000 as a single person or 4,000 as a couple, that is free to you, and the county will give it. And we don't have a waiting list for that. Home-based care for only, burial cremation. Don't want to talk about that. That's pretty. I'm going to talk a little bit, even though I say that, I'm going to talk a little bit. We, for some reason, in the 1970s, my team got tasked with handling people who die and have no family whatsoever. And we have to get a court order. And there's a cemetery in the Alexandria, Annandale area that I go by and make sure that it's mowed and everything, because all of our lost souls are in that place. Usually that's a sheriff police job, but we do it with them, and we actually get the court orders for that. So I don't want to make that a big deal, but that's what we do. As they say, cradle to grave. I think we actually do prenatal to, the graveyard. So VICAP is Virginia Insurance Counseling Assistance Program. Medicare is so complicated, and whether or not you even need a Medigap policy is, they'll tell you that you do, but do you? And which Part D do you pick? So complex. And so there's a great team that we have here. You leave a voicemail, we transfer you to that voicemail. They'll call you back. They'll talk to you again about your situation. They will not make any choices for you, but they'll winnow it down to maybe 3 top choices for you. It's open enrollment right now, so they're very busy till December 7th. Nursing home, people ask us about that, how to pick a good one. We often give them to the ombudsman who are on our floor. They go into the nursing homes and know what's going on in each of them. Legal services, we have a small contract for those who are impoverished and have senior needs. They don't do divorces, and they don't do anything too, I don't think they do guardianships either, but smaller things. Wills, powers of attorney, there's some funding there that we can refer people. Mental health, substance abuse. We have people who have mental health concerns or substance abuse concerns that call us. That happens with older adults, happens any age. And my team, that's a particular interest of mine, so they're very good on the phone. We have a few people that kind of stick with us on the phone, and we do a little light counseling. It's not really our goal, but some of them get kind of stuck with us and comfortable, so we'll do that. But we also refer. There's one organization that does counseling for older adults and takes Medicare. Medicare pays so low that not very many private people want to take, private counselors want to take that. And this group used to go out in the field and be with the older adults. So I refer to that or to our community services board if they qualify for that. Employment training, getting more of these. People's money isn't stretching. There's some special senior programs and special senior training that are, we used to call it an employment center. They're calling it a career or success center now. Has a special targeted for older adults, and we'll make sure they get hooked up with that. Medical, dental, various things. How do I pick a doctor? What number do I call? We can't recommend anyone, but we should tell them how to work through that. Home repair. We have a great group across in housing, not in our department, but in housing. We know them, and it's called Home Repair for the Elderly. They're great. They'll do ramps. They'll do small repairs, like even the faucet if a faucet's leaking or a light's out and the older adult owns their home or condo, I don't think they can do it with renters, but they can do small jobs. And we have actual county employees, I think 2, maybe 3, who help out with that. Pretty rare. I don't think any other county has that. Social Security people ask questions. We tell them talk to Social Security. Every now and then we do something called a warm transfer too for people where maybe it was hard for them to get to us. We don't want them to lose it. So we know how to warm transfer to Social Security so they don't have to dial again. I like that element for certain clients, so that we don't just say, call Social Security, here's the number, but we do something called a warm transfer to help them. Durable medical equipment. Some people want to donate that to us, don't have the capability to take it, but we know who's kind of giving away, needs wheelchairs, giving away walkers. If there's a flow out there in the community, and if you take the money off of it and it's all donations, that's what we're aware of. Assisted livings. People will ask us about assisted livings, about the private and public funding of assisted livings. Public is very minimal, and I can explain it. There's a great website that Virginia has that I often talk about, which can show you every inspection every single assisted living has ever gotten, whether it was based on a complaint or just a normal, a regular inspection, who the inspector is. It's not set up by us, it's set up by the state. And usually what the state sets up, I'm not impressed, but this assisted living compare is really, really interesting. I think it's great. I refer people to that all the time. Ombudsman Program, making sure things are going okay in the nursing home, doesn't rise to adult protective services. No one's being abused and neglected. Although we're getting a lot more reports that people who are COVID positive are being neglected, and they're calling us and saying, I'm not being turned because the staff is fighting over who's going to take care of me and I'm way off in this wing. I would take that as APS, Adult Protective Services. But if it's the food isn't hot enough and it's not culturally appropriate to me, or I don't like this home health aide, I like this one better, that kind of stuff can be done with the mediation with the ombudsman. ElderLink. Okay, wanted to tell you, I said that the income was $3,000 for an individual, $4,000 for a couple, and that there was a private group. ElderLink staff, great social workers, 6 of them, I think, about 6. They're on the same floor here in the Panino building with me, but they get their paychecks from Inova. So they are Inova hospital employees that the county gives space to and some money to. But it's a partnership between the county and Inova Hospital to provide case management for those whose incomes are between, I think what it goes is $3,000 for an individual up to $6,500 a month, I think. And for a couple, maybe $7,500. And I'm not exactly sure that that's right. Because what I often do is transfer. They have an intake line, you get a voicemail. With us, you get a live person immediately. But they have a voicemail, but they're very good at returning it. And they will do case management for so much cheaper than you could get on the market. And they have some programs they can offer. Respite. Oh, they have a fantastic program called Chronic Disease Self-Management. It's fantastic. And my own dad had a new diagnosis of congestive heart failure in March, and he went through that online and found it so helpful, how to handle chronic diseases. So that's a great little group. And again, something only Fairfax has. Financial needs, again, we often send them to 222 for budgeting. We don't do that ourselves, although we do have a program where people's bills are being paid by someone, and that's, again, in ElderLink. As long as they're capacitated, but they want someone to sit down and help them do their bills, we have a little program for that. Neighbor to neighbor grocery and medication pickup. That is the only reason I have a press 1 or press 2. 1 is this: it's neighbor to neighbor grocery and medication pickup. It only got created because of COVID. We have people who are related to firefighters. In other words, they got trained, but they're citizens or they're former firefighters who are going out right now picking up groceries for older adults and medications for them. And because we had a deluge of requests, we had to put a press 1 for neighbor to neighbor, press 2 for the rest, everything else. That will go away, but we have one person who comes up here. She's with the health department. She's sitting taking all those calls. So that's not my team, but it's on our line, so we get some questions sometimes. Health and wellness, I talked about ElderLink. Police, sometimes we have to call the police either to do a wellness check, or you got to go out there right now. I don't like what I'm hearing on the phone. We've had suicide where we keep them on the phone, and it's pretty rare, but it's happened. You can see those numbers are small. Intellectual disability. We do adult protective services investigations in those group homes, and there's services that those folks need. That's a tough group. We have a whole organization in the CSB that works with them, but sometimes we need to get in there too, see what's going on and help out. Volunteers, oh my gosh, we have this beautiful volunteer program that unfortunately is grounded because of COVID, because most of our volunteers are older themselves. Some of you may be on that program. Fantastic work that we do up here on the 7th floor in the Area Agency on Aging to get them signed up. And they do so many different things for people, and typically they are the ones that do our Meals on Wheels. But we've had to be concerned about them getting COVID, and we've had to ground them. But volunteers do so much around here, and so we will transfer them if people have volunteer needs. Right now, a little quiet in that, but typically a very energetic, and I think thousands of volunteers are working with older adults in Fairfax, saving us so much money. Disability services, the one that's housed up here has more to do with making sure the ADA is implemented properly. Environmental services is very funny. Hi, I'm 87 years old. My husband died a year ago. There's a squirrel in my fireplace. What do I do? I think he dropped down in here. And so, it can be anything. One woman's talking about a tree that fell on her lawn. And what does she do? And because she's older adult, she calls us. I'm not going to say, hey, wait a minute, I'm here really for long-term care services, not for a tree. We're going to help her out, no matter what age she is, really. And we'll probably do the warm transfer again, because this is a big county with complicated services. So where do you go? Tax administration, property tax relief on your house. Don't forget that. If you have $340,000 or less in the bank and your income is a certain level, you've probably seen that in the bills you get. That's probably our main, but sometimes, yes, during tax season, our Golden Gazette, which usually is on this list, it's not on here this time, but our Golden Gazette, which some of you may know about, it's a newsletter that comes out every month. They'll have tax preparers that help folks that are advertising that. My team usually gets people who are anxious to get that done right away. My good old type A people who are totally on time, who I love, and I'm not like that, but they want those taxes done right away. So they'll say, hey, I don't have my Golden Gazette yet. Do you know who's going to advertise in there? So sometimes we get that. Respite, that's the caregivers need a break, and a lot of our respite program is through that ElderLink group, and they will give a home health aide who can sit so that the person can get out on the weekends. And that's, I think that's income of any kind. And again, that's through our medical team is our contractor, and then caregiver support. So I think this is part of caregiver support, right? And we have a caregiver support group, and our wonderful caregiver support staff, who just introduced me, do amazing things. I worked in Arlington County, I worked in Prince William County, and I worked in Illinois, and nobody had a caregiver support focus like I've seen here in Fairfax. So I have been impressed. All right, so Juliana, how much time is left?
Hi, Karen. Thank you so much for such a wonderful presentation and really great information. We have plenty of time for questions and answers.
Yeah,
so
I like those.
So we have a question from the audience, and it says, the neighbor-to-neighbor grocery and medication pickup resource. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Okay, so when COVID first started happening, and we had to ground our volunteers, but people were calling Meals on Wheels. That's really where everything started flooding on the very beginning of COVID. And they were running ragged, just trying to get the meals going out there. And while those callers were saying they needed meals, they said they can't get to the grocery and they can't pick up their medications. And so we saw that unmet need, and so did the politicians, because they were getting the same type of calls. And so these were older adults who probably were driving just a little bit and going to get their groceries and going to get their medications, and maybe people at the grocery store were helping them, and nice folks were putting the groceries in their car. And now COVID's hit, and their doctor says, do not go out there. Do not go out there. And they don't have family nearby. So they couldn't figure it out for how to get these things, how to get their medications, because only some deliver. And even in COVID, that was getting kind of strange and difficult. But anyway, so what happened is, I think it was the public health department and our group and the board of supervisors, and I cannot remember which one it was, but said, hey, wait a minute. We have been already in communication with this thing called CERT before COVID, and it stands for Community Emergency Response Team, CERT. And they are the folks who are beside, how Fairfax is fantastic at, we've gone to Nepal, right? We have a group that's gone to Nepal and tried to dig people out of the rubble. Fairfax is known to have an amazing group of emergency responders. Those folks had been training civilians to be support staff in some way. So they, again, I can't remember which board of supervisors, somebody could probably say, type it in there, but he had his staff communicate with this CERT group, which he was already learning about just before COVID hit, and say, could you guys partner, and all your trained volunteers, are they comfortable? Because they're not our volunteers, they're CERT volunteers. Can you, even though I know you wanted to help clean, if there's an earthquake, you're going to help, or some emergency, there is an emergency, it's COVID, we need these older adults to be assisted. And they said yes, which was great. So there's like 100 of them, and they live in certain parts of the county. And so they needed someone who would field the phone calls and take those calls and hook the older adult who needs the medication and grocery help, usually once a week, I think, and the older adult and a CERT volunteer. So we created a database, and my team doesn't do it, but the woman who does it, Susan, is from the public health department, and they decided to have her sit near my team because people don't call just about one thing. While she's over there near us, if CERT is something the person needs, but they also need something else, she can transfer it to mine, and she comes over and asks us questions all the time, which is great. I mean, that's just something about the county moving fairly quickly for government to create this program. So it's free. The clients are always trying to give money to the CERT volunteers for gas, or for they just want to give them money. They're nice. They cannot take that. And it's a pickup. It's not where the CERT volunteer puts the older adult in the car with them and takes them to the grocery store and they do it together. It's not supposed to be that. It's supposed to be where the older adult can go online, and I bet the CERT volunteer helps, pick out stuff, you know, at Giant, Safeway, wherever, have it on the side, and then the CERT volunteer goes and gets it and brings it back to them. How they handle the money piece, it's complicated. They want the older adult to, you know, give their credit card to Giant and the CERT volunteer not to be involved in any of it. I suspect, knowing, you know, being out in the field and knowing how things work, that even though there's rules and regulations, that the CERT volunteer, a different one, might go, sure, let's go together. You want to pick out your own produce, you know, but they're not supposed to. But, oops, sorry. But I know, I have a feeling that, you know, once you get a helper involved, they kind of come up with their own way of doing things. So right now, that was really, 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 really busy when it first started about 3 months, I think. What's it, November? So I think it started in August, July or August, maybe July. And right now I'm noticing that their calls are down pretty low. I think the emergency is kind of gone, and the CERT volunteers have been connected with the really lost souls, more lost souls in our county, or the ones that have limited social support and can't drive, or their doctors don't want them out. So of course it's easy to say, a doctor say don't go out, you know, they have things they have to do. So I think there's been pretty good matching, and they have their volunteers, but it's still open. And so if you have anybody who needs someone to pick up groceries or their medications, please call this line, and you're going to press 1 for neighbor to neighbor. It's going to transfer over to Susan with public health, and then you press 2 and you get my group for everything else. And you can have both. You can start with neighbor to neighbor and be transferred back to me. Does that
Great, thank you.
sound good?
Thank
Okay.
you so much. Yeah, thank you so much. And you have so much information, Karen. I mean, like, seriously,
Sorry, I talked
always
too fast. Sorry.
No, that's okay. We actually have a lot of questions, so I want to make sure that I can get through most of them.
Okay.
So will the medication pickup benefit continue after COVID? And what about other medications pickup resources that are long-term options?
Yeah, there are some pharmacies, you know, the local pharmacies tend to do deliveries, and there's a group that does bubble packs. And if you're very interested, like, they do a bubble pack. Yeah, they came to talk to us once, and I'd have to go back to my desk and find them, but they're very interesting. They'll be able to, like, get one med from one pharmacy, because it's in your, I guess Medicare Part D has a certain pharmacy you're supposed to use, but then that one might be in that pharmacy, and they're able to get it all together and deliver it. I've forgotten the name of the group, but if you call my number, their number, the team will probably say, hey, Karen, what's the name of that? And then I'll have to find. But there are, you know, for-profit things out there to do it that aren't that prohibitively expensive. And then there's pharmacies that'll do the delivery, you know, some of the small ones. Like, I live in Arlington, so Preston's pharmacy does do deliveries. But I suspect CERT is going to, I haven't heard anything about it shutting down yet. I know it's slowed down, but there's no talk of it ending. And regarding long term, I mean, there's a chance that those CERT volunteers have created a relationship with the older adult or the person with disabilities, and that will continue. Like, I couldn't see why the county would say you absolutely cannot help anybody anymore. I mean, if a relationship is created. So I don't know, though. Who knows what the future holds? But do call if you're worried about medications and getting them for the long term or the short term. I would start with neighbor to neighbor and see how that goes, because I know a little bit about it, but I'm not over there answering that. That's not my team in charge of it. So call them, ask, and then if you want long term, they'll probably shoot you over to my group, and we can tell you about how to do that. And my team, to be honest with you, they have ideas I do not have. I listen to them. I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. So
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that's the best way to find out. Just call. Yeah.
Yeah.
Our next question says, does the home care registry also have respite services or care aides that can walk with the elderly?
Yes. I can say that I've looked at that list, God, I want to try to see if I can get to that list really quickly, because I can tell you guys how to navigate to it, because that is a great, I mean, it really is. I mean, I guess I'm pretty positive. I say everything's great, but no other county's doing that one. And the idea, like I told you guys, my own dad had some trouble, and I am going to tell you right now that I went right to that home care registry to deal with that. I also called the woman who creates the home care registry and say, this is my dad's temperament. Who do you think would match with him? So if you call my number, we could even get you in touch with her, and you can say, okay, you know, my mother has a strong faith and would need someone with a strong faith, or my mother really can't stand when people are talking all the time, so I need a quiet one. And they definitely do walking. I think a lot of them say that on there, and they definitely do respite. Those are two things that they will do. I'm just typing in Virginia. Okay, if you guys want, I'm just going to tell you this. Virginia, I'm doing it now. Senior Navigator. Virginia Senior Navigator, which is a program from the state. It's not ours, about how to find things. I don't love the Navigator, but Virginia Senior Navigator Home Care Registry. So it's in my phone. And then you'll get some ads. Forget the ads. And you'll see, for me, it's the fourth one down. It says Senior Navigator Program. And it says Home Care Registry in Home Companion. And I'm clicking on it. Oh, and it says you may call 703-324-7948 to have a hard copy mailed to you. Good. I'm glad it says that. But if you don't want to wait for our hard copy, and we always like to save money here in Fairfax. I don't like to do postage. You scroll down just a little bit. I clicked on it, and like just halfway down the page, there's a link in blue that says see the Home Care Registry, and I'm clicking on it, and there it is. It says download, or it's pretty long. There's a lot of home health ads. So what do I see? I see like languages spoken, where will they drive, what's going to happen. So yes, I just went on too long, but I told you how to get to something really great. And that is those two things that you want, walking, companionship. Yeah, just being a human rather than going in and doing a task and getting out is definitely possible on that registry. A lot of it's location. You know, the aides don't want to drive too far, and they don't like when parking's tough. So I'm in trouble with Arlington. All right, next one.
Thank you. With increased COVID cases and the senior centers closed, are there resources to keep people engaged and busy during the next few months?
Beautiful question. Boy, Juliana, you have a great group here. All right. So again, very happy with Fairfax. So the senior centers is not in our bailiwick because we're more concerned about care and about, you know, adult protective services and, you know, what's going on out there with our most impoverished and most needy and most frail. But the socialization is tremendously important too. And the group that does that, you guys probably already know, is Juliana. What's their name again?
Which one?
Evan Braff. What's
Neighborhood and Community Services.
Neighborhood and Community Services. That's unique to Fairfax. I've never heard of that anywhere I've ever worked. You know, Area Agency on Aging, you'll find that across the entire country, everybody. But neighborhood and community services, that's unique to Fairfax. But they run the adult daycares, and they have done a great job at making some things virtual. And I am hearing, at first I'm thinking, is that really going to work? And I'm hearing great things about the virtual. We just had a care plan conference about this guy, and he's in his 40s, and he is a quadriplegic, and he was used to going out to concerts where his friends got him into the wheelchair, and he loves concert going. He's very depressed, and they were talking to us about how they're trying to get, you know, music and concerts and different activities, and that it's very engaging. So there is a virtual senior center, and they got that up running very quickly. I'm surprised. It's a very interesting topic. So I think if you Google, Fairfax County virtual senior centers, that you're going to see some things. Otherwise, I know senior center staff are calling people who used to come every week, see how they're doing. I know that because I get some adult protective services calls from them because they don't like that if they're not answering. So we're still running after the people who normally came to us to try to take care of them. The congregate meals, they're also doing deliveries to the home. They used to come and eat, right? So now there's an option to get it delivered to them at home that our Juliana's teammates doing. So we're not forgetting them. We're reaching out to them, and we're trying to create this virtual platform. That's the best we can think. If you have other ideas too, call us.
Yeah.
I always will round them up.
I mean, Fairfax is truly has so many options and resources. The Fairfax libraries actually have put on a really good virtual programs for people, and they're also offering workshops so that you can go pick up your kid from near library and then take it home and participate in those workshops. They have happy hour discussions. They have book clubs. So that's another option. And also the adult day health centers are offering virtual activities. So that's something to look out for as well.
Those are good. I mean, they could work if you're doing like armchair yoga or, different things where you see, even if you have dementia, you see the people you used to see to keep your mind engaged. I'm so worried about the adult day health cares. They're fantastic centers. And I'm so sad that they're shut down. I like them better than the home health aides, they're fantastic.
That's true.
Fantastic.
You just reminded me of something because they have been able to keep in touch with their participants. They continue to check in with them. So that's really wonderful. So our next question is Virginia working on a caregiver registered list to prevent repeated cases of elderly abuse?
That is extremely controversial. That is very controversial. There are good things about a registry and there are bad things about a registry. And it's like a lot of things, what sounds like a good idea at first when you dig deeper isn't the best idea for various reasons. If you're going to be put on such a registry, then you have a right to appeal that, and really say, wait a minute, did Adult Protective Services really get everything? Do they know that I did this? Is this absolutely, true? So there's going to have to, if we created that, there has to be an appeal process. And I've watched one of those happen, and it took, I don't know, a whole year, and I think got reversed. So the idea of a registry is not, I mean, I get it. We all want to protect older adults, but that is still out there. I hear talk of that at the state level. I bet it's going to come one day. And remember, 55% of APS in our county is self-neglect. And then the vast majority beyond that is family dynamics. Now, nursing homes, don't get me started. It's all the structure of those places is set up so it's very hard for the caregivers to be paid correctly and trained correctly. At the same time, they can't do things to them. They have to go, they have to go if something has happened that we can be sure of. It's so difficult to nail down exactly what's happening. Maybe if more cameras got put into facilities, that would be an idea, which I think, by the way, if you have a family member in a nursing home, you have the right to ask for a camera to be put in the room. That's what I'm going to do if I need to go that direction. You have a right to, and you tell them, yep, I'm putting a camera in, I want it in, it's going to be a feed, and you can monitor what has happened. That is allowed. We also have a great team, what's it called? The Medicaid fraud unit at the Attorney General's level. They are aggressive. They are good. They have put their own cameras in and not told people, told the facilities and good data and gone after people. So to let you know, if we get abuse, neglect, and exploitation in assisted living or nursing home where staff is, we partner with so many different licensing agencies to go in there and try to make sure, see what's happening and what's going on. Oftentimes that person does get fired before we can even finish the investigation. So they're gone. So then there's no investigation because the person who potentially hurt them is gone, and it's more of a criminal matter. So anyway, you asked a very interesting, because I could always talk about adult protective services, interesting question. There's stuff on both sides of that, but in the meantime, we're going to go after every single, incident that sounds credible of people being neglected in those facilities. They worry the heck out of me. I think they have to let us in now, but a lot of it's still on the screen where we talk to the older adult about what happened. That's a tough place. That's why I like that my job is more to keep people out of those places. We're going to do so much, and adult protective services will fight even when neighbors say, he has to go to the nursing home, he looks awful, and we will say, maybe not, because people think those are safe places. I've never thought that, and I think COVID has shown, when nurses like to tell us social workers he's got to go to the nursing home, I say, why? Oh, because it's safer. Oh, really? Have you spent a night in there? So you've got good social workers on your side to keep you at home here in Fairfax. It just makes more sense. Stay out of those facilities if we can, But if we're in there, we're gonna. If we hear something, we've got great investigators who are no joke going out to those facilities. Very firm social workers doing their investigations. Adult protective services is a tough group. They have a tough job, and they're tough people. But yeah, and Juliana, we have, because you've done APS in a different county, and I did APS in different counties. I've never seen a county more better staffed than Fairfax. I mean, we have 4 different adult protective services units. This county has really, really, really put its money on the front line. We don't need all these administrators telling us what to do, and we don't have too much of that. So I've worked a lot of places. I'm impressed with Fairfax, and you guys don't know me, but I wouldn't say that if it's not true. Juliana knows.
That's true, and I agree with you. I am very impressed with Fairfax as well. I think we are doing a pretty good job at taking care of people.
We are.
Yes.
And being good steward of public funds. Do you know what I mean? I feel like we're doing a really good balance there.
Absolutely. I think we still have a couple of minutes. Could you talk about how APS can be utilized as an ally for family caregivers who sometimes are struggling to help their parents? Because what happens, and what I face a lot in the community, is that this notion and vision that APS is against people, and which is not true. They are truly great advocates and can be great allies. So could you talk a little bit more about that? We have a minute about.
Okay, and that's and I was a little late, so if you want to go late, that's fine. The truth is, and we have to do these things called investigations. That immediately sends mixed messages that social workers are investigators. Okay, police are I mean, if someone is assaulting an older adult, they're going to go to the police, and the police are going to do that hard side. But most of the time, and I find this endlessly fascinating, is that the older adult is the one that is actually more capable and more has lived a more robust life and been a worker and have income and have a home. And the child, let's just say a child or a grandchild or some relative is in the home and is younger and is saying they're taking care of the older adult. But the truth is, when you look deeper, the younger person has had these minimal times where they leave the house, but then they come back, they get married, they get divorced, they get a job, they lose it. Sometimes there's alcohol and drugs involved. And there is a lot of mixed emotions for the older adult around that. And the other kids might say, why is she doing this with this kid? So then you've got all those emotions going on. There's guilt, there's overprotection, there's substance abuse. And so all of this complexity is nothing that the police can do by just arresting someone. It is something where the older adult is the driver of what happens, and a lot of times they want the relationship better. They don't want the caregiver thrown out. You know, they don't want the caregiver on the street. Everybody else is telling them, get rid of them, lock them out. You can do this. You know, everybody says it seems so easy from the outside, but inside it's the older adults' value system and churn and guilt and the complexity of that long relationship. Social workers do not show up at an adult protective service place and there is a caregiver. But remember, caregiving can go both ways, right? And say, we're going to undo the entire life that this family has created. We're going to undo it. You live over here. You do here. You don't get to talk to her like that. You talk to her like this. That's not what we do. There's a whole life that's been created. We've got to respect it. We've got to listen to it. We've got to listen to value systems of both and try to have them come up with their own solutions through different therapeutic techniques that we have. So caregivers, by the way, who are on the ground doing the day-to-day stuff are amazing. And they don't do it perfectly, and they do have their moments. And so people who are outside of that system and judging it, usually another kid out in California saying that kid's not doing the right thing, it's a mixed situation. And we kind of give a lot of credence to people who are there day to day and doing that hard work day to day and not doing it perfectly. And saying, all right, what are we going to do? Our number one focus at the beginning is always going to be, what does that older adult want? And even if they're in the middle, okay, you have a very capacitated person, you know, like everybody on this webinar is completely capacitated, and this is the date, this is who is the president-elect, this is what's going on, you know, you're fine, we know we're going to listen to you, what you want. Then you have someone who's comatose in bed. We know that they don't have the right to do anything. We're going to take care of them. They're more like kids in the eyes of the law and in the eyes of social work. Then you have everybody in between. And there's a little bit of dementia. And there's a little, sometimes they have a good day or a bad day, or a good hour or a bad hour, or, you know, their brain has some mental illness. And we have, we're lucky to have a psychologist who will go out and do an assessment and see where the older adult is in their abilities to make decisions that aren't great for them. But we're going to try to soften it. We're always looking at risk. Like, what's going on here? Is there a fire? Can we take the knobs off the stove? Keep you in your home, but can we take the knobs off the stove and get the Meals on Wheels? You know, are there falls? Can we get an occupational therapist? We actually have a contract with one out there to fix that. The caregiver is great, but the caregiver needs 2 days off. Can we get respite in there? And say to the caregiver, how are you doing? You know, how is it for you? Oh, your brothers and sisters are giving you a hard time. Maybe you want to get in a caregiver support group, because I know the others have had that happen too. So we're going to look at a family dynamic and not judge it and not pull it apart. We can't, number one, and we don't want to, number two. We're trained to respect it. And sometimes we have to take the outsiders who say, you guys have to go in there and change it. Because the biggest thing I have after Adult Protective Services is closed and we get another report is, I did a report and you guys didn't do anything. I'm going to let you know, just anybody who makes a report, we do stuff. We do a lot, but we have to respect the older adults' right to make the choices they want to make that are mixed. We also don't just go, we want to do this, we're out of here. We're going to keep trying to create a relationship and ease more towards safety. I often say, you were a taxpayer. Taxpayers, your money's paying my salary. Your money's helping with the Meals on Wheels. Just try them. Try them for a month if they're having weight loss, and try them for a month and tell me you hate them. Give me a feedback. Which ones are good? Which ones are bad? Just to try to get services in a way that's kind of rapport building like that, versus you have to do this and you have to do that. So we are social workers, even though we're doing an investigation. It is an investigation of value systems, family systems, caregivers, strengths and weaknesses, and even those, we don't get to define what that is. It's just we get to know, what do they want? What would if they could wave a magic wand themselves, how would things be different? And then, do we have any ideas how to get closer to the image that both the caregiver and the older adult has that's better? This little tiptoe, little step forward. And I get really thrilled if it's one thing or one service or one change that happens, rather than the whole place changing immediately. But now,
Thank you.
real quick, if it's somebody's going to be at imminent risk of losing a limb or dying or whatever, okay, that's a different story. We're going to go hard, but that's only like 1% of the situation. Okay.
Excellent.
Sorry.
Thank you so much. No, Karen. I mean, you have so much information to give to our audience, and I am actually getting a lot of comments of people thanking us for having you today present, because all the information that you've given us has been very, very valuable. So thank you so much for being here with
I was
us.
2 minutes late. I was 2 minutes late. Gotta dock me, but
It's
I'm gonna go back
okay.
to my team and see what we got today. There's usually some wildness. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you so
Call
much.
us.
Definitely. We are getting to wrap up. And so as you sign out, there will be a brief survey. So please help us take a moment to give us your feedback. And thank you so much for being here today. Thank you so much for your questions. And visit our website, which is listed on our screen. And also, if you want to contact Karen's group, Karen, could you give us your number?
Or you mean my main number? Yeah, 703-324-7948, 703-324-7948. If you want to get to me personally too, that's the best number. Just, they'll know where I am. I think they know where I am right now. I'm not sure. I snuck right into this room. I didn't have my badge. And so I think they're looking for me. I better go find them. Bye, guys.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good afternoon.